It was actually It's actually my friend who she recommended this shamanic journey. I think this is the second time I've done shamanic journey, but it wasn't involving animals. In terms of my spirituality, I did take animal communication course when I took Reiki back in 2016. I wasn't very good with it because my third eye wasn't developed at that time. So I'm interested in experiencing this again. So that's it for now. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Sean from Maryland. I will take a shamanic journey. I don't know if I really believe it. I heard like a mushroom trip, right? If you take that trip, you can have pretty good feeling about it. I'm just come here to learn what about it, the shamanic journey.
That's wonderful, Sean. And yeah, just to say, sometimes you see, tonight we're looking for our spirit animals, but sometimes some sort of experience can happen as well. And you receive information about your inner self. So we hope for the best tonight. Garrett, that's you, you're here?
I'm here.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah,
it's going crazy.
We got a lot of people already. That's great.
In here I have
Oh,
Yes, we're doing introductions.
I'm Gretchen, and hi, and I was started getting interested in shamanism because my psychiatrist was actually telling me for like depression, anxiety, all this other kind of stuff that the pharmaceutical industries they're not even pursuing doing this anymore, and that he's looking to, and it's more, there's a lot of psilocybin and all this other different trials going on, and so he was he can't wait. He's going to be doing starting his own in where he is in Utah over there, and since I'm in Wisconsin, I can't partake in that, but he was telling me about going to a shaman would be an option. So it's pretty surprising that the psychiatrist from a great like a major thing is kind of promoting that. So, and I've actually had an experience too that was just phenomenal, and it really was life-changing. So I'm just looking into everything that shamanism can enlighten me with, not just that, but
cool. Yes, I don't know how to pronounce it, but psilocybin has been shown to have a better effect on treating depression than even the traditional SSRIs, from what I've read, based on studies that have been done of it. It's nice that they're actually looking for microdosing, not taking like majorly psychoactive doses, but microdosing. But yeah, it's a very interesting field, exploring what are often still illegal drugs in terms of their medicinal options.
Yeah, I've got a friend in Peru, and they do microdosing over there. And it is just, she definitely recommends it. It is amazing, the difference that it makes for all sorts of psychiatric issues. And yeah, so especially something natural. So it's really nice to hear that. I mean, these are like major universities here that are doing these studies, Stanford and things like that are in their third clinical trials and stuff like that. So it's not fly by night. They've actually found that this is just so valuable. So yeah.
And this is a microdosing with mushrooms. Is that what we're?
Well, the microdosing, I believe, is done with not psilocybin. I'm not sure how to pronounce that either. But this is with the, I want to say, frogs, or it's from it's something else. But I want to say it's the frog. There's something that comes from the glands of frogs or something like that. But this is in Peru, but you'd have to look, because all that stuff is legal there. And it's legal to microdose there and stuff like that. So, and get a hold of all that stuff, as well as all different kinds of plant medicines, as they're very big in that. So, but two of the major shaman places that are recommended, or places to go on these journeys, are in Peru. So anyway.
What country is it legal? Where can you do those journeys? That sounds very interesting.
the ones that I had heard of that are very good is in Peru, and she knows people who have gone there. There is a huge, like a 3-month cleansing process you have to do, or it can be deadly. My psychiatrist told me that a shaman in Oregon would be the way to go, and that I could go there and have that done. So
I also do want to encourage, we're not like there's no medical doctors that I'm aware of here, but like I will say, like, from having known a lot of people that have done different like mushrooms, you want to like read up on it before you do it, so that you know what the effects of it are like and how it will affect your body and how to prepare for it. It's not something that you just show up and figure out that day. Like, you need to be well researched if you're going to do something like that. So if you are, like, research it, don't just jump into it. It's it can be very dangerous if you do try to just jump into it. So don't do that. And I just posted a link to a study that shows psilocybin, and I can't pronounce it, but the mushrooms used in microdosing for treating depression, I think it is.
yeah, and there is actually, she does know someone who died from it, that went to this wonderful place in Peru, but they had not followed the 3-month prior, there's a strict 3-month prior regimen that you need to follow. And that includes not taking any of your meds, and a lot of stuff. But thank you for emphasizing that, because that is absolutely to do the research on it first and make sure to adhere to everything that they say.
There used to be a group here on Meetup, or 2 groups. One was a group of psychologists, and I used to attend that one. And they some of them were like they talked about the microdosing, but they said it was very important to have have someone who knows how to deal with the complications. And there aren't no one in the group, even if they had done it they did not want to be a guide, because there's just too much it's against the law, might hurt their psychological or their practices and stuff like that. But I've met some people who claim to have benefited from it, and
it's just been legalized here in Australia, so doctors can prescribe it.
Oh, great! That's good.
100% legitimate. I think it's got to be a psychiatrist, but it starts in June.
Yeah.
So hopefully you guys will follow.
Yeah. Well, Commonwealth countries, then we tend to. I'm in Canada, so.
Yep. Well, it's legal now. It's MDMA and psilocybin, pharmacologically produced and prescribed by medical doctors, psychiatrists, I think.
Okay. I think. Yeah, I think they were doing some research studies here, but I haven't really kept up to date on that. It's a lot of people have used it. A lot of people claim it's good, but and it's even though it's illegal, it's very accessible. I'm sure if I wanted to get it, I could get it. But I just don't want to risk something tarnishing or hurting my career at this late stage in my life, because the police will charge people for that. So
you got to do it when you're like away from civilization, like if you're camping or something. You don't want to do it when you're downtown.
Oh, I agree. I think so. Yeah, you got to.
Yeah, that was definitely what my friend said, is that you should be like in the woods, like in a place where you're away from civilization, and not in a like there were people that got in very bad shape taking shrooms and in more urban areas.
Unfortunately, it's true, because mushrooms is a very nature-oriented drug. So it thrives, and you thrive best within the natural context. So the more surrounded by nature you are, and less around civilization or anything artificial or man-made, the better you are.
Well,
Hi, Alice. Well, we've got a lot to cover tonight, but I just wanted to say that Garrett Jackson's here. Maybe you can wave. He will be our shamanic practitioner. And we're going to get started in about 5 minutes. And I guess tonight we won't have a halftime. So I'm just going to let you all know that in the chat, you'll see Freethinker Institute information for our meetup if you want to join us directly, about our membership. And we also have information for Garrett Jackson, his website, and also his meetup that he sometimes posts on. And just to let you all know, the 14th of March next week, we're going to be doing Why Did Trump Get Elected? And the 28th, we have an introduction to Baha'i. And on the 4th, we're going to discuss gun violence, which is plaguing us. So that's just some information. And I guess we'll do a couple more introductions before getting started.
I was just going to say that, I mean, that thought of having mushrooms in the forest, don't do it unless you know what you're doing, because I know people that have never recovered from it. I've had it, and I thought I was completely, utterly insane for about 2 hours. So yeah, just because they are prescribing it pharmacologically, I wouldn't get carried away and just take it. You really got to know what you're doing.
Gotta know what you're doing. See, that's funny because I felt that way on marijuana, right? Marijuana made me psychotic for so many years, but mushrooms were like my favorite drug of choice. Of course, I used them sparingly, but every time I was on a trip, I was like always downtown, like the core of downtown at a party or something. But I'd escape. I'd go to a back alley. There'd be a little park I'd go to, and I'd just chill there and veg, and I would have the most amazing thoughts. I loved it.
Yeah, well, everyone's different, but I mean, some people, there's certainly a fair proportion of people, you know, should be extremely careful. You can go into psychosis. Yeah.
Spirits.
Would anyone else like to introduce themselves, where they're from, and what interests them about tonight?
My name is Indira. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I was having trouble with my microphone, but yeah, my name is Indira. I'm just interested in this whole find your power animal, spirit animal. So I just thought I would try it out, see how it works out. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
We can
thanks
hear
for
you
sharing.
great. It's great to have you here, Indira. We're happy to dive into the subject with you.
Thank you.
I would also add, I've not had experience with peyote, but I have had experience with ayahuasca. And I would add that it's very important to treat this, to do it in a ceremonial context, even not just in the woods, but to really treat it with reverence. You know, it's not for entertainment, I would say. And it can be very, very profound experience. And I'm very happy that you're hosting this, so thank you.
Thanks for coming. And thanks, Garrett Jackson, for hosting tonight.
It's great to be here, Garrett Lang. It's a great joy to be
Not often
here.
we have two Garretts in one room. I don't know if that happens to you more often than me, Garrett, but it doesn't happen to me. So.
It's always so refreshing. I hardly ever meet anybody with the name Garrett.
It's rare, but I have met a half a dozen or a dozen in my life. I even met a Garrett Lang once, which really threw me off.
You're going to have to send some of these spare Garretts my way because I never meet them. And it would be great to have some more of us because every time I go and get myself a coffee, I say, Garrett, and inevitably I say, I see Jared printed on my cup.
Yep.
And I think, well, no, not quite. So
Jared,
we need
Gary,
Garrett awareness.
Yeah, I get a lot of Gary.
Yeah, sometimes when I tell people my name and they're like, Gary, I'll just say, sure. That's
Yeah,
fine.
I'll answer that. That's fine. As long as you don't call me anything too rude, then I'm good.
Right. Don't call me Carrot. Gary, that's
Got that
it's
one
the
when I
outer
was a
limit.
kid. Yeah. So it's about 7 o'clock. So maybe we'll kick things off if that's okay with you, Garrett.
Oh, that sounds great. I'm ready.
Cool. So I want to welcome everybody to tonight's live meetup through Zoom. My name is Garrett Lang. I'm a software developer turned software inventor and now an entrepreneur, and my hobby is writing and discussing practical philosophy. I also serve as the executive director of the Freethinker Institute. The FTI, we like to call ourselves because it's shorter, is a not-for-profit looking to support and empower members. We really want to help people be the best version of themselves, to seek truth and to be fair through transformational personal and professional development. We have free events every Tuesday evening, of which this is one, covering a wide range of topics not typically covered in academia or industry, like shamanism. We also have weekly members only events to apply practical wisdom into our daily lives. Ellis will post about membership if people want to learn more about how to do that or be involved in that. We only have one rule in the FTI, and that is to remain polite. So I would just ask everybody to remain polite. If you're not, you'll get a warning. And if you're still not polite, you'll get booted from the session. We do get Zoom bombers here. Those are the only people, maybe with one exception, the only people that have been booted are the Zoom bombers, but people are generally pretty polite, and we like to keep it that way because we're all more open-minded when other people are polite. And I would encourage you, if someone says something that you vehemently disagree with, rather than vehemently disagreeing with them, ask them why they think that. Ask them why they came to the conclusion that they did, and seek to empathize with them and understand their perspective rather than to disagree with them. You learn a lot more by listening to someone else's perspective than you do by asserting that they're wrong. So that said, it's also much more polite. So that said, tonight we're talking about an introduction to we're going to talk about shamanism, and Garrett Jackson I'm going to introduce now. He's a practitioner and teacher of classic shamanism, a graduate of Sandra Ingerman's 2-year teacher training in shamanic journeying, healing, and medicine for the earth. Garrett offers online shamanic classes and circles, as well as readings and shamanic healing work. He holds a BA in psychology from the State University of New York, SUNY at Plattsburgh, and has maintained a certification in mental health first aid since 2018. So we do have a large group tonight, so I want everyone to remember to be respectful when you do. We're going to have Garrett kind of lead the session, and then we'll probably have time for conversation and comments afterwards. And when you do, when we do that, everyone will raise their hands, and we'll go in the order people raise their hands. But try to limit comments to 2.5 to 3 minutes per person, and limit it to 1 question or 1 comment per time that you raise your hand. You can always raise your hand, drop your hand and then raise it right again if you have more than 1 thing and it's going to take longer than that. So that said, I want to go ahead and let Garrett take it away. Go ahead.
Garrett just said he needs to attend to an emergency.
Oh, okay. So let's see if anyone has how many people, let's do like a raise of hands if we could. How many people attended the last session that we had on shamanism, for the intro to shamanism?
This was my first time.
First time. And it's okay. Garrett gave a little bit of homework for people for who it was their first time. It's a little late to give the homework out. I think he only posted it in the Freethinker Institute meetup. And so you may not have gotten it. It'll be okay, because the truth is, even when we post homework, not many people do it. So we're used to that. When you're not getting graded and it doesn't impact your GPA, people don't do homework as often. So that said, hopefully this is kind of an intermediary course. We had like an intro to shamanism with Garrett the first session, and today is kind of going into spirit animals, and he'll introduce more about that. I'm kind of curious because I don't know what my spirit animal is, and I'm not sure if it's going to work for me to figure it out. So I'm going to find out tonight. So and Garrett, when you are ready, just go ahead and let us know. I don't know if anyone has other. Are you back, Garrett?
I'm back. Thank you for
Alright.
your patience. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So I'm going to go ahead and let you take it away. I've introduced you. And so now if you can introduce kind of what the agenda is for the evening and walk us through it.
Sure. So greetings, everybody. It is great to be here in circle with you. Thank you for taking the time to be here with me this evening. Before we get into the flow of our evening, I'm going to just take a moment and bring our virtual circle together. We're tuning in from many different parts of the world, and to bring us together as a unified whole is a great way to start our deep exploration this evening. And so what I'm going to invite you to do is take a moment, let your eyes float closed if that feels comfortable for you, and just settle into wherever you are. We won't worry about playing any music. Let's just sit in this rich silence together for a moment. We can take a few slow, deep breaths in through the nose. And out through the nose as well. Breathing in through the nose. And out. Beautiful. Bringing in one more slow, deep, conscious breath. As you do that, filling the belly, filling the lungs. And on the exhale, letting it go. Feeling as your energy begins to move from your head into your heart. For the mind is capable of learning and absorbing spiritual information. But it is through the vessel of our heart that we come to truly understand spiritual wisdom. And it is in this heart space that we can have very meaningful connections with others, ask really meaningful questions, and bring more of our authentic selves into our time together. As you breathe and just feel the energy settling into your heart, perhaps you can feel the heartbeat of this circle. For yes, we are many individual people tuning in from many different places. But on a spiritual level, we are all one. And as we feel this unified heartbeat of our group, we not only feel more centered inside of ourselves, but we feel more connected with all of life in and outside of this gathering. We honor ourselves for showing up. We honor all those who have taken the time to be here this evening to add their perspective and energy to the group. We thank the spirit of the device that you're using to connect, for in shamanism we acknowledge that everything that is alive. We honor the Wi-Fi that's connecting us, the spirit of the home that's holding you, giving you a safe place in which to step into the circle. We honor your own helping spirits, and whether you know their identities or not, we call your personal helping spirits to be with you now, to support your time in this class, and to create a beautiful, safe, and sacred container in your surroundings, in your environment. And we honor the creative power or powers of the universe of our own understanding. And we acknowledge that this heartbeat of our circle is not just the heartbeat of the humans in our circle. It is the heartbeat of all the life that's involved with our circle. Helping spirits, even the Wi-Fi, your device. Just breathing and feeling that interconnectedness. And on your next inhale, allowing your eyes to float open at a pace that's comfortable for you. So, okay. Want to welcome you all again to this class, Discovering Your Power Animal. I'm very excited to be here with all of you this evening. Garrett Lang did a fantastic job introducing me, so thank you so much for that. And I'm really happy that I get to be in this circle with all of you. Because Garrett Lang already introduced me, I won't take up any more time introducing who I am or my background or anything like that. But I will orient you to what it is that we're going to be doing here over the next hour or however long it is that we have. What I want to do is start off by briefly reviewing what shamanism is. Some of you might have attended my previous talk with the Freethinker Institute that was briefly introducing shamanism. We will not have, in this class, a lot of time to rehash that old material. So I'm just going to take, for those of you that might not have been able to attend that talk, or did not have the opportunity to read the first section of the article that I linked to in the class description, I'll take a little bit of time and just review what it is that we're talking about this evening. Then we're going to move into a discussion about what power animals are and how they can help you. We'll then do a guided shamanic journey in which you are led into one of these spiritual worlds in order to meet a personal power animal, a personal helping spirit of yours. We'll have some time, we'll come back and share a little bit about our experience, and then we'll close with a discussion about what it is we can do to not only bring the power of our power animals to bear on daily life, but also to form strong relationships with them. Reciprocity is very much a part of classic shamanic practice. So to have these reciprocal relationships with one or more helping spirits is a very shamanic and I would say even very necessary aspect of keeping yourself spiritually well-rounded and even healthy. So that's what we're going to be doing together this evening. I do also want to say that I am going to be leading a 2-day, it's 3 hours on a Saturday, 3 hours on a Sunday, a basic online workshop on shamanism and shamanic journeying, where we're basically going to take a look at what is shamanism, what is the practice of classic shamanism. We're going to look at that in depth. We're going to talk about how to journey to these different worlds that shamans cross-culturally speak about. And in those journeys, we're going to be meeting up with a power animal. We're going to meet up with a spirit teacher, and we're going to talk about doing self-divination work, where you go and get answers to your own questions from helping spirits. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because for all of you that are here this evening, I have offered a 10% discount on the class tuition. The class itself is only $130 for the 2 days. But for those of you that are here, whether it's through the recording or here live, there is a 10% discount on that class. You can find the information on my website. It's Garrett P. Jackson, which Ellis, thank you so much for having put that in the chat. I saw that you did. And so if you're interested, you can just go to my website, send me an email and ask me for the invoice, and I'll send you the discounted invoice. So with that in mind, let's move on to talking about what shamanism is in the first place. So the word shaman itself comes from the Tungusic language of Siberia. And there are different interpretations of what the meaning of that word is. Some of the meanings are one who sees in the dark, healer, one who knows. And basically, a shaman is an individual of any gender expression who alters their state of consciousness. And in that altered state of consciousness, often makes journeys into spiritual realities. And through their journey work and through their other work, they accomplish many different goals. The shaman is an individual who performs divinations for members of the community or the community at large, bringing through vital information from the helping spirits in these journeys of a spiritual nature, bringing through valuable information from fully transcendent spirits to bear on the problems of daily life. They perform spiritual healing work, removing energy from people that does not belong to them and restoring energy to them that does belong to them. Shamans work with the dying and the deceased. They help those who are dying have a graceful transition home. And they help those who have died and perhaps gotten stuck on the earth plane to have a graceful and healing transition to another reality. Shamans perform ceremonies, such as ceremonies to welcome children into the world, to perform marriages. And they also work to find, to mediate, to find balance between the forces of nature and human beings. So there are many different roles that the shaman has, both in indigenous cultures, in an indigenous cultural context, as well as in our Western contexts that are largely not indigenous. Shamanism itself is a practice that is well over 100,000 years old. And I do see that, I hear that somebody is unmuted, so if we could mute ourselves, that would be great, and we will take questions at designated question and answer periods. So shamanism itself is well over 100,000 years old. In fact, some evidence that I had stumbled on a couple years ago possibly places shamanism between 200, what was it? Something like 250,000 to 400,000 years old. Very, very ancient, which makes this easily the world's oldest spiritual practice. And some would even say that it is the ancestor of all of our modern religions. When people think about shamanism in North America, or at the very least in the United States, sometimes there is the misconception that shamans are strictly of Native American or First Peoples ancestry. And the reality is that shamanism was found on every inhabited continent. It is not a culture-specific practice. It's not a practice that only some people in Siberia practiced, or some people in North America practiced, or South America practiced. Actually, people all over the world, virtually anywhere you find people, you will find shamanism, either in a contemporaneous fashion, in a current fashion, or in that culture's or in that place's history. So this is not a culture-specific practice. It is actually a human spiritual practice. And yes, there are cultural elaborations, but in my work, I do not focus on cultural elaborations. I focus on what's called classic shamanism. When you look at shamanic cultures around the world, yes, again, as I said, there are cultural elaborations, things that are specific to that culture. But there are underlying fundamental practices and principles that stay true virtually around the world or entirely around the world. And it is those not culture-bound practices and principles that I focus on and my colleagues focus on in classic shamanic teaching. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is not from one culture. It's actually something that we all have the inheritance of. It was so widespread that probably everybody has at least one ancestor who practiced shamanism somewhere down the line. So when we work with classic shamanism, there is no fear or concern about cultural appropriation because we're not appropriating culture. We're drawing upon, again, our collective human inheritance. Now, I talked about some of the things that shamans do. They journey to other worlds and get guidance. They journey to other worlds to find healing help. This thing of the journey, this journey that they take in an altered state of consciousness, is the distinguishing feature of shamanism. That is the hallmark feature of shamanism. Okay, and journeying itself is a very fundamental shamanic practice. The shaman alters their state of consciousness in a number of different ways, but very often the shaman alters their consciousness through repetitious sound. So repetitive drumming or rattling, singing, as the Sami people of Northern Europe would do, is repetitive chanting that would alter an individual's brain waves so that they could change their perception of reality, so they could close their thick senses, if you will, and open their thin senses, open their psychic senses. It could be the click sticks of the Australian Aboriginal people. It could be other forms of chanting. But what we find when we look at shamanic cultures around the world, what is classic to shamanism, I should say, is this use of repetitious sound to change brainwaves. Yes, there are shamanic cultures that work with vision plants, what we might in a Western context call psychedelics or hallucinogens, entheogens. And there was a very rich discussion about that earlier on in the evening, so I won't rehash much of that information. But there are some very real reasons that we in classic shamanism focus on the use of repetitious sound rather than the use of vision plants to get in touch with spiritual realities. That's a big topic and not necessarily part of what we're aiming to talk about tonight. But if somebody really wants to open the door to that later in our question and answer, I very much welcome that. So when people listen to this repetitious percussion, this repetitive drumming, rattling, singing, chanting, their brain waves start to alter. They start to change. They start to slow down from the beta brain wave into alpha, which is a light meditative state, and then further into theta, which is that state of consciousness, that brainwave in which the shaman or the shamanic practitioner can perceive another reality. Now, I keep talking about this other reality. What is that other reality? Well, from a classic shamanic point of view, there are two realities. This one, that when we look around in our space, we can perceive our candles and chairs and artwork and so on. And this is ordinary reality, what you could call the physical world. But parallel to that, from the shaman's point of view, is what we call non-ordinary reality. For those of you that really loved Carlos Castaneda's books, that's a term that he coined. But there are other terms for that spirit world. You could just call it the spirit world. You could call it the other world, as the Celtic people did. You could call it the dream time, as Australian Aboriginal people do. There's many different names for it. But what we're talking about is that other reality. And when you look at shamanic cultures around the world, there is widespread agreement that this spirit world, this non-ordinary reality, is split into three levels: the upper world, the middle world, and the lower world. The upper and the lower worlds are what we would call outside of time and outside of space, which means that they don't have physical components. They are entirely energetic in nature. There is nowhere, in other words, in the physical world that you could look to and point to and say, yes, that is the upper world, or, oh, yes, that's the lower world. These are realms entirely outside of duality, outside of space and time. And as a result of being outside of space and time and duality, I should say, they are worlds of unity. They are worlds of unconditional love, of peace, of healing. And the spirits that we interact with there are spirits of unconditional love, of healing, of unity. These are beautiful helping spirits that we interact with in these upper and the lower worlds. Now, there's also this middle world, and the middle world is non-ordinary reality to hear. In other words, it's the spiritual side of the physical world. So if I was to alter my state of consciousness right now through repetitive drumming, rattling, then I could perceive what's going on in my home on a spirit level. I could speak with the spirit of this piece of artwork behind me, of my chair, of the sacred clothes that I wear when I interact with clients and students. In shamanism, we see everything that is as having soul and having spirit. So we can interact with the life in those things, the spirit that's in those things. Now, obviously, when we look out at the world, the physical world, there's good and there's challenge. You know, there's light and there's dark. And the middle world, the spiritual aspect of the middle world is very much that same way, where there are some beautiful, loving energies to get in touch with here in the middle world, but there are also some challenging energies that, yeah, are not necessarily helpful and healing for us to be interacting with. So part of shamanic training is understanding what spirits are ready to help us and are capable of helping us, and what kinds of energies are not capable of helping and healing us. So that, in a nutshell, I think kind of provides us a really good broad context of what shamanism is, why it's okay for all of us to practice shamanic methods regardless of our ethnic heritage, and what it is that we are going to be focusing on tonight in terms of the worlds that we're going to be going to, because we are going to be taking a altered consciousness journey, a shamanic journey into one of these realms of unconditional love and light to interact with a spirit that we find there, namely your power animal. So, who are these power animals? Power animals are, there's different theories about what they are. Some shamanic teachers will say that a power animal is the spirit of a specific animal that lived and died at one particular place at one particular time. And after death, now they are capable of coming back and helping us, just like our departed loved ones are capable of coming back and helping us. So for example, some shamanic teachers would say, oh yes, I have a lion as a power animal. And in their understanding, this power animal would be the spirit of one particular lion that lived on the Sahara in, between the years 1820 and 1835. So that's how some shamanic teachers look at it. I personally view power animals as the oversoul of one particular type of animal species. So for example, if somebody says to me, monarch butterfly is my power animal, it's not necessarily one specific, the spirit of one specific monarch butterfly that lived and died somewhere in the planet's history. It's the collective spirit of that animal species, the power of that entire animal species that is volunteering itself to help you, its fellow life form. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about power animals. And these power animals are intermediaries between us and the powers of the universe. Some people might say, well, why do we need intermediaries? Why can't we just go to God? Why can't we just go to Spirit, Great Spirit, the powers of the universe? And you certainly can go to God and go to all of those types of beings. That's certainly not prohibited in shamanic practice. In fact, the only rule in classic shamanism is do no harm. Everything else is up to the person, up to the individual. So it's a path of spiritual freedom. Nobody's telling you what to believe. Nobody's telling you what to do, so long as it does not do harm to other people. And so we certainly can just go straight to God, if you will, but we as this is the way I think about it, we as egoic beings really resonate with form. We resonate with forms that spirits can take that really make sense to us, that give us a comfort as an ego. So if we're interacting with this formless, incredible power that is God or source, that might not resonate as closely with our egoic self, that part of us that is perhaps seeking out help, as closely as we might resonate with, say, a spirit in animal form, or a religious figure that has a human form or a recognizable form. Some might also say that the energy of God is so high that trying to touch into that power from a suffering place would not be something that you could maybe perceive the wisdom of very clearly. You would not be able to get that guidance very clearly. Or it could blow your circuitry, in a metaphorical way of talking about it. And so these helping spirits serve as intermediaries between us, channels of that great power of the universe. And so you could think about them as guardian angels in animal form, because angels are very often seen as the intermediaries to God or the universe. And these power animals are taking up a very similar role. The classic shamanic point of view is that when a person is born, the spirit of an animal takes pity on that individual and says, oh my goodness, Garrett's going to have a hard life. And I'm talking about me, Garrett, not necessarily Garrett Lang. Hopefully, Garrett Lang, you've not had too hard of a life. But in any regard, from a classic shamanic point of view, the perception is when a person is born, the spirit of an animal takes pity on you and says, oh my goodness, this person's going to have a hard life. They're born into a wild middle world. They're born into a wild physical world. I'm going to stay with them. I'm going to be like a guardian angel for them and watch over them, keep them healthy, keep them safe, protect them from the harms and trials and tribulations of life that they don't need to experience for their own soul's growth. And so they come and they be with us and they act as these guardian angels. And as I alluded to just now, they fulfill in their relationship with us many important functions. On the one hand, they provide us with something called power. Power, from a classic shamanic point of view, is energy. It's energy that our helping spirits carry. And the way I teach it is this is power that they carry that is from the universe, okay? And being power-filled as a person, having yourself be filled with power from a helping spirit or another spiritual force, such as your own soul or your own spiritual light, helps to keep you healthy, it helps to keep you vital, and it helps to keep you safe. Because being power-filled not only supports your health in different ways, but it also, as I said, keeps you safe. It prevents outside lower energies that you're not meant to experience for your highest good from coming into your own field and causing illness. So they provide us with power animals. They provide us with power, which is very important from a shamanic point of view for our health and well-being. As I said, they protect us from those trials and tribulations in our life that we are not meant to experience. The difficult reality is that life for many of us is not meant to be this nirvana experience where we never experience a hardship. We never experience serious adversity. There are certain things that we as souls contracted to experience when we came into this lifetime, not because we have a will to harm ourselves or punish ourselves for any reason, but because we grow in that struggle. It's a part of our growth. It's a part of our learning. It's a part of our evolution. So our helping spirits, our power animals, are wonderful at protecting us from those adversities that we might self-create, that we don't need to experience, that we did not contract as souls to come in and experience, that is not for our highest good to experience. They will protect us from that stuff, but they're not going to protect us from every adversity that life could throw our way, because in large part, that's how we grow. For those of us that are knowledgeable in how to speak and dialogue with these spirits, we can go to them and obtain spiritual knowledge. We can learn from them about the true realities of the spirit world. And this is something that I'm particularly passionate about because as a gay man in a partnership, with a queer Asian man living in America, we have a lot of examples of individuals who are telling us that we are wrong or bad people by virtue of who we are. And a lot of that argument is religious. People that cite Leviticus examples or biblical examples or other religious examples for why same-sex love is wrong, or what is to be expected of people who are a part of the queer community or are a part of spiritual minority practices like shamanism, what the destiny of our soul is going to be. And through shamanic practices, we come to spiritual knowledge for ourselves. Shamanism is a path of direct revelation, meaning we journey into these spiritual realities and explore their nature for ourselves. We do not need authority figures, preachers, pastors, or outside secondhand teachings to tell us what the truth of the spiritual realities of this world are. We can come into an understanding of those things for ourselves very simply through shamanic practice. And so our power animals are a fantastic source of this knowledge for us. We can also go to them for personal guidance if we're experiencing a hardship. Tell me what I need to do to heal this challenge that I'm experiencing at work. Tell me what my next step is for my move. Tell me what my life purpose is. Talk to me about my life purpose. Your helping spirits are capable of delivering that information to you, okay? They can also provide you healing. You can go to these helping spirits and ask them for spiritual healing help. Certainly not a substitute for traditional medical or psychotherapeutic healing modalities, but they are a wonderful complement to those things. Sorry for the sirens in the background if you can hear that. I live in DC and it's truly a city that doesn't sleep, for better and for worse. And you really can basically go to your power animals for any source of support that you feel you need. Companionship, anything like that. These are wonderful helpers for you. There really is no question that's too big or too small, or there's no request even that's too big or too small for your power animals to assist you with or to intervene in. Now, in a moment, we're going to take a guided shamanic journey to interact with these power animals for ourselves and start to gain some of this firsthand empirical knowledge of what the spiritual reality is like. That's my really big thing. I don't like taking teachings from other people about what truth is in the spiritual world. I want to find those things out for myself. And so in a moment, we're going to take a guided journey down to one of these realms, see what it's like for ourselves, and interact with one of your personal helping spirits, namely one of your power animals. Before I do that, I do want to put out this, I don't even know what I would call it, something to think about when we do this journey. When people meet a power animal, it's very, very common that they come back and they say, oh my God, I got worm. What does it mean? I got eagle, you know, as my power animal. What does that mean? I got Bengali tiger. I got butterfly, you know, whatever. And they come back and they say, what's the shamanic meaning of that? Or even worse, they run to Google or they run to books about power animals to learn what the meaning of these animals is. Google is not a good shaman, okay? Google is not a good shaman. The best source of knowledge of the spiritual realities from a shamanic point of view is you. And when you read online or in books or card decks what particular animals mean, they at the very least meant that for the author of those books and articles and card decks. That does not necessarily mean that that is why that animal is here to help you. Shamanism is a very individualized practice, okay? So learning what these spirits want to help you with, what their meaning is for you, might be drastically different from what you would find online. So if you come back and you ask me, I got worm or termite or blue whale, what does that mean? I have no clue. And that's the exciting part, because that gives you so much freedom and space to figure that out for yourself. So I'm going to take a moment and just pause and ask either Garrett or Ellis, do we want to take questions during the talk, or are we going to do question and answer at the end?
We've learned it's better to go through the whole presentation first and then take questions at the end, and it'll be questions discussion. But yeah, let's do that at the end, if that's okay.
Awesome. Yep, that sounds great with me. Thank you. Okay, all right. So what I'm going to do is just set you up for a guided journey, okay? It would be too much for me to try to teach you in the span of time that we have how to journey, because there's a few different considerations and it just goes beyond my capabilities tonight. So what I'm going to do then is just set you up for a successful shamanic journey that is guided. Again, a shamanic journey is we're going to be altering our state of consciousness through repetitive drumming. And in that altered state, we're going to take a journey into one of these realms of spirit. Shamanism is not necessarily an out-of-body practice. That is how some teachers in the Western world talk about it, as an out-of-body journey where the shaman soul leaves their body, or at least some portion of it leaves their body and then journeys. It's kind of a paradox. I do feel that this is a soul journey, but that does not preclude it from also being a fully embodied experience. In other words, it can be a soul journey, but you also bring your body with you. You bring your physical senses with you, okay? So I just want to clarify that. We're not really going for an out-of-body experience here. We're really looking for this to be an embodied spiritual experience. And what we're going to be doing in this journey is going to the lower world. And in that lower world, we're going to hold the intention, which is going to open that realm, open that door for us to meet one of your power animals. The way the journey is going to work is we're going to start at a familiar place in nature. Everybody's going to start at a different place. So I'm thinking of a place in nature that I really love. I won't be journeying with you, but I'm just giving you the example as if I was. I'm thinking of a place in nature that I really love. It's a beautiful lake in the mountainside that my family went to for many generations. And that's where I would start my journey, is just imagining myself in that space, feeling my body there, taking note of what my senses are doing, what are the smells, the colors in this space. I'm starting off in a beautiful place in nature. And then what I'm going to guide you to do is find an opening down which you can travel, such as a hole in the ground or a whirlpool that takes you down, or a rabbit hole, or some people will jump off a cliff and fly down, or some people even take elevators and escalators down. But I'm going to guide you to find some opening into the ground. And I'm going to lead you through this tunnel. And through that tunnel, which is a transition zone between the middle world and the lower world, I'm going to lead you down that, and then I'm going to lead you out into the lower world. Now, again, the lower world is a world of unconditional love, beauty, unity. We are not meeting spirits with egos. We're really meeting beings that have transcended, okay? And there's nothing to fear by going to this lower world. I know a lot of us in a Western context say the lower world sounds like hell, and that's really not the case. If you do believe in hell, this is not a hell place. This is not a hell realm. Again, this is a world of unconditional love and light that shamans around the world have been perceiving for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years. And when you're in that lower world, I'm going to invite you just to take note of what your senses are picking up on while you're down there. What colors do you see? What are the textures of the, I'm trying not to give you too many details about what you might find, because I want you to have a uninfluenced experience. But just pay attention to what your senses are picking up on when you're in that world, is what I'll say. And because you're going to go down with an intention, the intention to meet your power animal, that door is going to be opened up for you metaphorically in the lower world. And so when you get down there, you're going to either find this power animal waiting for you, or if you don't see a power animal right away, put out a telepathic call. I'm looking for my power animal. Please come to me, and see what happens. I never know what a person's experience is going to be like when I lead them on a journey. It could be a very vivid, profound experience. They might experience nothing at all. It might be a very gentle experience. They might just experience the lower world and not necessarily pick up on who their power animal is today. But that's the beauty of having the recording or learning how to journey, so that you can go back and repeat this and see what experiences unfold as you do this multiple times. This is something you can do many times over. So we're going to go down and just interact with your power animal. I'm going to lead you in some questions that you can ask it so that you can get a better sense of who it is. And then I'm going to lead you back up through the tunnel, retracing your steps into your place in nature, and then stepping back into this moment, wherever you're sitting right now, wherever you began the journey from. Okay. We're just going to ask our power animal questions tonight. We're not going to go too wild trying to get healings for things, or asking what your life purpose is or anything like that. This is just something to initiate or deepen a relationship between you and this animal. And the way that I think about this journey is we're going to meet one of your primary power animals. People tend to have one or three main power animals, and this power animal that we're going to be meeting is one of those main animals. It's just kind of with you to help you through life. That's how I think about this journey. There are power animals that can help us with very specific things. So for example, I have a power animal that teaches all my classes through me. Including this one. I have another helping spirit, another power animal that watches over my business. So there are power animals that can do very specific things, but we're just going to meet one that's just kind of with you as an overall guardian animal, guardian angel, if you will. Now, as we set up for this journey, I'm going to just invite you to create some darkness in your space if that's comfortable for you. In classic shamanism, we very often work with either the lights out or with an eye mask, something we put over our eyes to block out the light. And really, this is just to cut down on the extraneous variables and distractions so that we can focus on what's going on in our psychic senses. So this is a time where if you want to turn off your lights, go ahead and do that. If you want to turn off your camera so that you don't feel so self-conscious, you can do that. Journeying can be done sitting up, lying down. If you want to move your journey or dance your journey to make it an even more embodied experience, that's a-okay with me. It's actually not traditional in shamanic cultures that shamans journey lying down, but that's how many of us teach it. So you can do that if you'd like to do that. And as we're going through the journey, I'm going to invite you to just allow whatever experience comes up for you to come up for you. Don't worry too much about doing anything or trying to have an experience. If you're trying really, really hard to have an experience, your ego is going to dilute your perception of it and therefore the power of it. So just allow my voice to carry you on the journey. Allow the sound of the drumming to carry you into the other worlds. In Siberia, the drum is called the shaman's horse. So just ride the sound of that down into the lower world. Let it facilitate the experience for you. And don't worry about whether you're making it up. This is the biggest question shamanic journey students have in the Western world. Am I making up my experience? Am I making it up? Well, shamanism is an evidential practice, okay? We can talk more about that later, but for now, just don't worry about whether or not you're making it up. Allow the experience to unfold for you rather than trying to force an experience open for you. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn off some of my own lights here. I am not going to be journeying with you. I'm going to be here holding the space, but I will certainly be leading you. So go ahead, turn off your lights. I'm going to do the same for myself. Turning off most of them, I should say. And I'm going to begin to share my screen with you. And this will be a very short journey. It's only going to be 12 minutes in total. So we're not going to be here for too long. Go ahead, get comfortable. Take a few deep breaths in and out through the nose. If you found your own energy kind of floating its way back up into your head, let's just let it sink back down into that heart space. Because it's that heart space that's going to let your spirits really speak with you. Shamanism is a path of the heart, not of the mind. So let's let that settle back into the heart. And as you're breathing, perhaps you can feel your heart opening. Or perhaps with every breath, you can feel your heart expanding. And with every exhale, feeling your heart coming back to center again. And as we settle in, the repetitive drumming that's going to help take us into the lower world is going to begin. This drumming slows your brain waves down. Your brain is in training, is synchronizing, harmonizing with this drumbeat. And it's slowing your brain waves into a beautiful alpha state. And then even slower into that theta state. Your consciousness is expanding. Seeing if you can feel or see or otherwise perceive yourself in a beautiful place in nature. A place that you have either visited before or some other beautiful place that has a physical component. A place that you could visit today if you wanted, or next week. You're in this beautiful place in nature. And you're acclimating to what it's like to be on the start of a journey. seeing what your hearing is picking up on. What colors are in your environment? Maybe there's even a scent here. Taking a moment and noticing how you are perceiving information in this place. And noticing as a opening becomes available to you in the ground. Perhaps a hole opens leading to a tunnel, or a whirlpool appears ready to take you down. Just noticing what opening is appearing for you. And stepping through and down this opening, through this tunnel in the ground. Down, down, down. Through the transition. Away from the middle world and into a transcendent reality. Soon you notice that the tunnel leads you into this beautiful place. It opens and allows you to step into the lower world. As you arrive in the lower world, taking a look around, noticing here what the quality of territory is like. What are you seeing? Or feeling? If you were to reach down and run your fingers across whatever's beneath your feet, what would it feel like? Engaging all your senses. We come here with a purpose. To meet our power animal. And so we put out a telepathic call now. If an animal is not already here for you, I am looking to meet my power animal. I am here to meet my power animal. Seeing what happens. If there was already an animal here, does it answer this call or does it wander away? Does a new animal come in? It might be very unexpected what this animal is. just taking a moment to ask this animal that might be before you, are you my power animal? And if it says yes, introduce yourself. And if it happens to say no, we'll say, okay, can you go and get my power animal for me, please? As this animal is before you, again, introducing yourself. We say, we're so happy to meet you. Or maybe to rekindle this sacred relationship. Maybe you can ask this animal, what is your purpose with me? What is your purpose with me? Just noticing what comes in response to that question. What is your purpose with me? What are you here to help me with? What would you like to do for me? And now let's ask, how can I form a strong, meaningful relationship with you? How can I form a strong, meaningful relationship with you? And now, as the drumming changes, we know it is time to say thank you and goodbye for now to our power animal. We turn around and quickly, but with discipline, retrace our steps back up the tunnel. Up, up, up. Up into that beautiful place in nature. From there, stepping back into your surroundings from which you began this journey. Feeling yourself present and fully back. So, welcome back, everybody. Let's take a moment and let our eyes float open if we haven't done so already. Maybe we stretch anything that needs to be stretched. And let's take a few minutes here to take notes on what we experienced. What animal did we meet? What did they tell us? I'll give you a few minutes in silence to reflect and take some notes. All right, let's start to put just some of the finishing touches on these notes. You can always take down the core points and come back to them later. Right. So I hope that everybody enjoyed their journey. I hope you had a good journey. Whether you experienced something really profound, you initiated this new relationship with the power animal, or whether you didn't experience anything this time, I hope you had a good journey. Again, this is something that you can repeat as many times as you like to meet a power animal or to deepen a relationship with a power animal that you already have. I do see we have lots of questions in the chat. I see we have hands raised. I cannot wait to answer your questions. I'm going to get through a little bit more material first, and then we're going to dive right in. So interacting with these power animals is really important. Some of you might find that this is an animal that you never would have expected that you would have met. You might have found that this was an animal that you had a close relationship with when you were young, or a really deep emotional connection with at some point in your history. It might have been an animal that you actually already have a relationship with, and its presence tonight simply reaffirms that, yes, I am here with you, I'm here to help you. But whatever the case is, asking for help from your power animal really empowers you personally. But honoring that animal in some way keeps that relationship alive. It helps keep it juicy. If we don't keep those juicy relationships with our power animals, then that power can it can kind of drift away from us, if you will. It's not as fully present with us. or that animal might wander away from us. And we really therefore want to keep a juicy, strong relationship with that power animal, which is part of the reason that we actually brought that question into the journey tonight. There's many different ways to ask for your help from power animals, both in and outside of a journey context. So clearly tonight we were asking for some kind of help. We were asking for guidance and knowledge in a journey. But we can also ask for their help outside of journeys too. As we're going about our day, we can ask that that power animal come and fill us with their power. Fill us with their universal energy to the degree of our highest good. And as they fill us with that power, we become more vital, resistant to lower energies. And I also think it can help us to feel more confident and safe and secure. It also just helps us to be healthier in general. So this is something great to do if you're going into a really difficult conversation, you're having a difficult work meeting, you're about to have a difficult conversation with a partner or partners, and you really just feel like you could use some additional support. Calling upon that power to fill you up is great. If you're feeling sick or unwell, calling in that power is really good. Thank you for coming and filling me with your power to the degree of my highest good. It's a great way to work with them. You can also ask them for protection if you're feeling unsafe at some particular place out in the world, or at home, or out on the freeway when you're driving. If you're feeling unsafe or unsecure, you can, or insecure, I should say, you can call your power animal to come and protect you, ensuring that you are safe from harm that you're not meant to experience for your highest good. So they're like guardian angels again in that way. You can ask them for healing help. You can say, God, I'm really struggling with this arm pain or this back pain, or I have this emotional problem that I'm experiencing. Can you come in and heal it? Can you come in and offer healing for it? And again, that might be a miracle cure. That might take away the issue entirely, or it might heal or address in part or in whole the spiritual aspect of it. And there could be other medical or psychotherapeutic modalities that would really help you to attain total, full wellness, integrative wellness. So we can call them in and ask for healing help. Once we know more of the nuances, which again is kind of beyond what we're talking about tonight, in my opinion, we can go to them and also ask them for guidance about what to do about a work situation, or what to do about a relationship situation, and so on. But in the meantime, we can very much ask them for to convey knowledge as we're going about in the world. And we say, God, I'd really like to know a little bit more about this, or can you give me an intuitive nudge about what to do, or an omen in ordinary reality, a sign in ordinary reality. They can absolutely do that as well. They can work with your intuition and provide you helpful guidance outside of that journey context. And you can just call them in for any support or companionship when you just feel like you need a little bit of love, you need a little bit of support, you need somebody to talk to. Maybe without a body. You know, people with bodies are great to talk to, but sometimes people with bodies don't always get everything that we're trying to express to them. And so these helping spirits who are transcendent beings can really beautifully understand what we're going through. Now, honoring them, again, as I said, is important. And I think that how to honor them is very individual. And that's why I had you ask the animal how it wanted to be honored in the journey. And again, if you didn't get that information this time, please don't worry. This is something you can repeat as many times as you want, and see what happens as you continue going and going and going in this practice, in this journey. But I do feel that, yes, although I'm going to give you some general ways that you can honor your power animal, the best way to honor them comes from them personally. One of the ways that I honor my helping spirits is I say good morning and good night to them. To me, that helps keep that good relationship. You can put up pictures or artwork of that animal in your home. Maybe you even make the artwork or take the picture and you put it up as a way of honoring that animal. And every time you walk by and you see it, you just remind yourself to send a little bit of love or say out loud or silently thank you to that animal. When you call in these animals for help, as I was just talking about, it doesn't have to be aloud. You can call to them telepathically, if you will, with your intention, or you can call to them out loud. It doesn't matter either way. You can put a figure somewhere in your home, a statue or a figure somewhere in your home or on your altar. So for example, if you have an altar somewhere with sacred pictures and items and crystals that were ethically sourced and other things of that nature, then you can put a figure of this animal on there as a way to honor and respect them. But I think connecting with them regularly, however you do that, is really important for this main power animal. They're there to support you. And as I said at the very top of this talk, reciprocity is really important in the shaman's work. So as you form a juicy relationship with this animal, you get a lot out of that relationship. You get a lot out of this relationship. So with that in mind, all of that, I know that's a lot, but with all of that in mind, I think now is a great time to go into taking some questions. So Garrett or Ellis, I will hand things over to you to let you have this flow as it's meant to. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and call on hands. Janice had her hand up first, and then I'll put my hand in second, and then we'll go to Octavia third. So Janice, go ahead with your question or comment.
Yes, thank you. I guess a little bit of question and comment. I ended up having 6 power animals come to me. Now, and some of them I would see, I hear the name of the animal, and then the other one I would see the picture. But what I'm kind of wondering is how they came to me, in the sense that some would show up on my left side, some would show up on my right side, and one particular came right at me, straight at me, which happened to be a white tiger, and he came down, sat beside me, and just was nuzzling me. We're just he was comforting me, I guess. Is that kind of like a normal kind of thing? Does it matter with the sides, left, right, central, or does that ever come up?
Well, that's a great question. If there was a classic shamanic example that I could point to, then I definitely would. But this is one of those things where I haven't seen it yet in the literature. And therefore, rather than offer you a more anthropological answer, I think what I would say is repeat the journey and ask them, what's the significance of this? Why are some of you appearing on my left side and some of you appearing on my right side? This white tiger coming right at you, that's a very powerful experience. And having it sit next to you and comfort you, that's its own kind of powerful experience. And so I can't think of any examples at the moment that I could draw on and offer you a really substantive answer. I think the most substantive answer I could say is repeat the journey and see what your helping spirits tell you. Because even if I could think of an example, I've seen people say that left side means this and right side means that. It might be completely different for you because this is very individual. So yeah, I think that go back and ask the question and see what you learn. Does that help?
Sure. The first thing I thought of was my left side logical, right side creative, and the central one coming to have a balance between them both. That's the one thing that came to me, right? That's me thinking, though. That's not from them, right?
Yeah, I know our egos and our human minds are not always so good at figuring out the meanings of things. I see this all the time with my own work, where I'll go to my helping spirits and I'll have a healing client, for example, and I'll say, oh, I bet they have this health challenge. And they're like, well, that's a nice theory, but it has nothing to do with what's actually going on for them. So I would say that, yes, that's a great starting place, Janice, and go back and see what it is they tell you. Yeah, great question.
Thanks, Janice. All right, I had a weird experience, Garrett. I was skeptical about whether or not I'm not so good at trance type stuff, but I like the thing that came to me when you said it may be something unexpected was a pterodactyl. Is that possible?
Oh, that's absolutely possible. Yes, very often people receive animals who are either extinct or mythological. Some could even make the argument that the mythical animals are the extinct animals of many, many years ago. that history simply has not recorded. Now, in your case, a pterodactyl is something that evidential history has very much recorded. So yes, it is absolutely possible, no matter whether the animal is here with us or long gone, to have them as a power animal. Yes.
Cool. Octavio, go ahead. I'm going to try to Google what a spirit animal the pterodactyl means.
My question is, are we always interacting with the spirit world, or is it only sometimes? And do only some people interact with the spirit world, or does everyone?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Octavio, that is a fantastic question. It is so big that I could probably only address it in part. But what I will say is, in reference to is everybody always interacting with the spirit world, I think that the spiritual realities are always very much parallel to our own. It's not separate from our own world, our physical world. It's very much parallel to it. And so many of us, as we're going about our lives, we do receive intuitive hits about various things, feelings that come to us, or visions that look like daydreams, or there's some kind of sign or omen that interacts with us. As I was talking about, we might wake up every day and say good morning, good night to our power animals. So I personally do feel that the spirit world always has a place with us and is can always interact with us. It's always capable of, the spirit world is always capable of interacting with us. Whether we are fully aware of the spiritual reality in any moment, I think, is the big question. Because shamans and shamanic practitioners work very much with a discipline where when we're in ordinary reality, and in our ordinary state of consciousness, we are fully here. We're not straddling two worlds at the same time, where we're half here and we're half there. If we're here, we're fully here. And if we're fully in the spiritual reality, then if we're going over there, then we're fully in that reality. So shamans work with a really clear discipline. But having said that, it is not possible to fully separate the spirit world and the physical world. So we do receive intuitive insights and messages from our helping spirits throughout the day. Now, in terms of your second question, can only some people, I think it was something to the effect of, can only some people interact with the spirit world? Was that it, Octavio? Okay. I'll go with that. So personally, I feel that everybody can interact with the spiritual realities. Everybody, I feel, is equally intuitive, that nobody is more or less psychically gifted than another person. I think the big question boils down to, are we aware of our psychic senses? Do we know their language? Do we know how to, in a disciplined and effective manner, interact with these spiritual realities? So I think through training or personal experience, people can learn how to do those things. Not everybody is going to learn that, but I think everybody has the potential to do that. Does that help? Okay, I think mute might be a problem, but I hope that helps. And if it doesn't, then please let me know. Yeah. So who do we have next? I see we have Shay and Katie who have their hands raised, but I'm not sure who was first, Garrett.
Katie's first.
Okay, Katie, let's hear it.
Yeah, in Christianity, the separation from God, because we kind of view this world as a test. Why is there separation between ordinary reality and this parallel world?
Oh my goodness, that is another fantastic question. I can personally offer you my own theory, which I think to some degree would be backed up by my own firsthand experience and what I've been taught. But to tell you the truth, that is such a big and beautiful question that I probably would not be able to do it the same level of justice that your power animal would be able to do it. So my best recommendation would be to repeat this journey and see what happens if you ask your power animal that question. It might be a question that when you ask it, without any further shamanic training, you get a really fantastic answer. It might be a question that, you want to learn a little bit more about shamanic practice in order to fully interpret and work with what they're telling you. But I think that they're going to be the best entity to really answer this. Having said that, my own theory is that we as human beings are here to have an experience, and that this middle world, this world of duality, is a fantastic place for living beings to be, to evolve and grow and become more than we were. And to have that experience and that learning is a real gift, and it's a fantastic opportunity. It's Earth School, or it's like an educational retreat. For some of us, it's more like an educational boot camp, but it's like it's a big educational experience. So to me, it feels like learning. But there are shamanic practices in which we can go and learn more about that. And thankfully, there are no gurus in shamanism. There are no outside authorities. The human teachers are not the ones with the big knowledge, which is good, because it's such a big question that I don't even know that I'd be able to do it justice as a human being. So that's my theory, that it's about learning and evolving, and that's why there's a separation. But I think your helping spirits would be able to answer that really beautifully, Katie. Yeah, great question. Shay, go ahead.
Hey, hey Garrett, thanks. This has been it's been really cool. Appreciate a nice online session at a good time, and that it was offered for free or what have you. So yeah, it was nice to go in. The animal was not what I expected. Initially, I was just asking about the music because I feel like there's so many kinds of music out there. In terms of shamanic drumming, if there's something, because you've had sort of formal training and you've been doing this for sounds like a while, I was wondering if you recommend anything in particular to sort of have us go through that journey, or specific artists, links, something like that. If you could put it in the chat, that'd be
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, first, it's thank you for your kind words. It's great to have you, and that your power animal was unexpected, to me, is expected. Because so often we go into this and we meet an animal that we never in a million years would have thought, this is an animal that I would have selected or thought of for myself. And that shows us that we're getting in touch with something beyond us. That shows us that we're getting in touch with a truth that's beyond what our human mind can grasp at when left to its own devices and its own imagination. Now, to your question about music, I think the bottom line is that everybody's going to find music that they resonate with best. For me, I work best with repetitive drumming. Some people, they really work best with repetitive rattling. For some people, it really is meditative, monotonous meditative music. So I'll give you some examples of each of these that you might be able to work with. In terms of repetitive drumming, which is always my top pick for shamanic students who are learning journeying, is an artist by the name of Sandra Ingerman. She's a psychotherapist as well as a world-renowned shamanic teacher who's my teacher and my friend. I'm very lucky. And she creates these beautiful journey drumming tracks that range from your typical repetitive drumming to things like berimbau rhythms, to even taiko drumming. So all of those drumming tracks are actually found on YouTube. You can go onto taiko. Yeah, so taiko, I don't actually know much about taiko. As I understand it, it is a Japanese form of drumming or music. And she was a part of a taiko group in New Mexico, and she worked with them. The group was called Taiko Soul, S-O-L. To make some taiko drumming tracks. So for all of you, if you go onto YouTube and type in Sandra Ingerman, I-N-G-E-R-M-A-N, so in German, and then drumming, you will find lots of different options, again, ranging from classic drumming that's very repetitive, or the different kinds of alternative styles. I personally have not found repetitive rattling tracks that I really like on YouTube or on a publicly available platform like that. So if I'm feeling called to work with rattling, I'll actually take a pill bottle and shake it close to my head. In that I like 4 to 7 or 4 to 8 kind of rattles a second, something like that. And so I just use pill bottles or other things like that that are lying around my home. I do have professional rattles, but they're very clear and sharp sounds that I think my neighbors would come knocking on my door if I did that too much. In terms of repetitive music that's not necessarily drumming or rattling, I personally really like Jonathan Goldman. His music is also freely available on YouTube. It lasts typically over an hour, some of those tracks, and they do have a little bit of diversity in tone and sound in them, but for the most part, they are, in my opinion, quite monotone. And that does help to facilitate an experience. Some people might even like to just work with binaural beats, pure binaural beats that you can find on YouTube again. So those are some resources I can think of off the top of my head. Does that help, Shay? Perfect.
Yeah, for sure. That was awesome. I vaguely remember Sandra Engelman, but yeah, definitely will look into her again. That's awesome. She's one of the biggest shamans out there in sort of Western mainstream, or not mainstream, but
Yeah, I agree with you. I think personally with there are many popular shamanic teachers. My personal understanding is that she is the most ethical and effective. I won't say she's the most effective because it's really the spirits that do the work, but in terms of her personal ethics and the authenticity and quality of her training, I certainly vouch very much for her. Yeah. Thank you, Shay. It's a great question.
Thank you, guys. I don't know if I should share my little animal or if you gotta move on since I'm talking now. It's like
Oh, no, this is a space for sharing. If you feel called to share, we'd love to hear it.
Sure, real quick. So I saw what I thought was a deer with strong antlers, looked like a wide, strong deer. So I was trying to figure out exactly what kind of animal it was. It moved really fast, and the message was it was trying to guide me towards where I had to go, which was because it moved fast, and it was encouraging me to just stay in movement and not be stagnant. So that was kind of cool, and that it would kind of guide me through some kind of honing or smell or something that it was that it used in the wild for whatever reason. So it was really strong, and it was really kind of felt like it gave me a bit of strength. But it was really like a fun experience. Just I don't know how much was imagination, what it was, but it was wonderful, right? Like it was. So thank you. Yeah, those are my 2 cents, and I'm out. Thank you.
They're great 2 cents, Shay, and I appreciate you sharing them. I'm happy you had such a powerful experience. And I mean, you're right. It's in a Western world, it's so hard for us because we've been so enculturated that there's only one reality, not two. And it's very difficult for many of us to kind of reconcile what is imagination and what isn't. And what I tell my students is that shamanism is a very evidence-based practice. I know you didn't ask about this, but it's a great teaching moment, so I'm just going to piggyback on it. In indigenous shamanic cultures, people really relied on the shaman to be accurate. They relied on the shaman to tell them where to find food, or where was safe to move the community, or to perform healing on the community so that the whole community could survive. And if the shaman didn't get good results, they were either not consulted or in some cases taken out. And I think you all know what I mean, but I see there's a little one here on the call, so I want to be mindful of my words. They were just taken out. Now, thankfully, that's not really the case. The people will be taken out in the Western world if they're not necessarily accurate, but they certainly won't be consulted. So shamans are evidential individuals. Shamanism is not a matter of belief, it's a matter of firsthand evidence. It's an empirical practice. And so when we interact with these animals, we might find that signs start coming to us in ordinary reality. We might start seeing deer in different places. We might take the advice that they give us and apply it and see the beneficial results. Sometimes when we're journeying for others, we get information for our client from this power animal that we could not have known ourselves. And that shows us again that we're tapping into something beyond us. or there's a healing miracle or a healing shift that occurs that was beyond what Western medicine or psychotherapies had been able to achieve at that point. So really, when we struggle with the question of is it imagination or is it not, we always go back to what are the results? What was the result of integrating this? What was the result of seeing this? What was the result of this healing work? So we're always looking at the results. So that's a great, thank you for bringing that up, because I'm imagining there were other people that were thinking that same thing. Octavio, I see, I did see a question from Katie come in. Yes, Ingerman, Ingerman. You got that perfectly. Octavio, I see another question.
Well, it's something I would like to share with the group. My thoughts about the topic. And I wrote something here. I wrote the spirit world is esoteric. It's occulted. It's a secret truth. But I also like to call it the great work, and includes non-human entities like mythological beings. The great work, the spirit world, is beyond human comprehension, but also includes everything human, like human interactions, politics, but also things like the sun and the moon, the sea, the sky, and the land, the four elements, and also the origin of life and the consequences of death in its own special, secret, spiritual way. And even though our starlight only offers us a small insight into why humans exist, I believe that the spirit world is the greater truth, not just human, but universal. And that's what I wanted to share.
I think it's a beautiful and very profound thing to share, Octavio. I think all of us could get something out of that. And I really appreciate you sharing that. And I just to comment even further on one of those points, I think that you're right, that we can comprehend some element of spirit, but it is so much bigger than we could ever imagine. I'm thinking in particular of a shaman of the Ulchi people in Siberia, a man by the name of Grandfather Divan. And Grandfather Divan, I believe he was either 14 or 17 when he started practicing shamanism. And he was 98 years old when he gave this quote to my teacher, Sandra Ingerman, that I absolutely love. Even after a lifetime of shamanic practice, he said, "I am just a baby in the work. I am just a baby in the work. We can walk this path for all our life and only learn one iota of everything that's out there." Practicing shamanism has actually made me realize how, in some ways, unintelligent I am because my spirits are so just offer me perspectives on things that I never think of. And it's really profound to get in touch with that. You know, the human mind can comprehend some truths on its own, and other truths it just doesn't, in my experience. So I think that what you're saying is really deep, Octavio, and I thank you for sharing it. And I do want to put out there, yes, I know I'm asking for questions, but I'm also open, very, very open, and wanting to hear people's experiences in the journey if they have something to share as well. I'm not quite sure whose hand was next, Garrett. Did you happen to pick up on that?
That would be me. So I don't mean to be critical with this, but because I love everything you teach about shamanism, but I'm very good at finding exceptions to general rules. So my exception finding brain asks a question about the rule, do no harm. Well, what if you take the example of a school shooter? Isn't it okay to harm him to prevent the greater harm that he's causing? And I guess what I would argue is that we should minimize significant harm first rather than do no harm. And I would add that we should increase happiness and decrease harm after minimizing significant harm. Does that align with shamanism, or is the do no harm just a simplification like it is in Buddhism, where there's really more nuance behind it?
Well, I think that my best response would be that journeying on this would be fascinating. to ask your own helping spirits what their perspective on it is, because I do think they'll offer you something deeper and richer than I would be able to offer you. That being said, I think that what we're talking about in shamanism is not doing harm to others. It's a great question. I actually haven't been asked this before, or if at all, in a very, very long time. So I'm thinking about this for myself and thinking about what a good response would be. You know, to tell you the truth, I really don't, I don't know. I don't know. I think that the spirits would have a wonderful answer for you on this, if that's something that, if that's a mystery they're willing to share. But I personally align with your ethics here, where if you have to take down a school shooter, for example, then that is perfectly permissible, because in my philosophy, doing the highest good for the greatest number of people that's where my ethics lie. And if you have to take down, for example, a school shooter to save many, young people or college students or whomever, then that is certainly the most ethical thing to do in that moment. At the same time, if somebody came up to me and said, well, how about I use my spiritual practices to curse a political leader that I feel is doing a tremendous amount of harm, putting in place very regressive policies or policies that I don't agree with, I would really caution that individual that even if they felt that cursing that person would in some way minimize their power or will or desire to pass regressive policies like that, or I would really caution that person that to use spiritual means to impact somebody consciously in a harmful way like that will come back to them 3 times over, which is what shamanism teaches, that to do harm to somebody intentionally, that comes back to you 3 times over. Now, whether or not that applies, again, to every single context is a great question. I really don't know. But I'm holding these 2 different truths. We don't want to curse people we don't agree with, even if we feel
I have
that.
I have an answer to that, Garrett. I have a good curse I use in that example, which is I wish you wisdom. And I wish them wisdom, and it's actually their egos that are preventing them from seeing the wisdom. And so it is in some respects a curse, but it's a curse in the positive direction, trying to help them find wisdom on their path, because I think we're all on this path of learning, and wishing someone wisdom that's causing harm is, I think, the best we can do other than preventing them from causing harm, which is what the school shooter example is about. So
yeah, and I almost wonder if wishing them wisdom is really a curse at all, because from a shamanic,
that's why I said it tongue in cheek, not as an actual curse, but for them it would feel like a curse, because that wisdom is going against what their ego is telling them, which is where they're stuck. And so I said it tongue in cheek as kind of a joke.
Yeah. And then the question becomes, if they feel that it is a curse, if they feel that it is in the moment to their ego, does it feel that way long term once they come in touch with truth? So these are very deep truths that you're touching on, Garrett. And I, as an ego, wish that I had the answers, because I'd love to feel that self-satisfaction that I knew, but I don't. But I know your spirits do. Yeah.
Thanks. And Janice is next.
Janice, let's hear it.
Hi. Well, since you brought up that anyone could describe their journey, I'd like to just a little bit, but I also just wanted to touch on what Garrett said with regards to his first example. That is what you would consider a righteous kill. Sorry for that word for the young lady there, but so that's that take on that, and the part about having put a curse on something, I don't believe in that. I'm totally the opposite. I just say things more like send them love, teach them compassion. I ask the upper beings to to do something. I don't wish nothing on anybody else. That's not up to me to decide. I would never do that. And so I just kind of just say, send them love, teach them love, so they know what love feels like. Maybe they don't know what love feels like. So maybe when they feel this love, they can have a change of heart. But again, that doesn't come from me. It comes from them, the outer realm. Anyways, my journey quickly. I thought it was very unique when we first started opening up. My opening was not actually in the ground. It was actually almost like I was already in the cave, or this big huge tree trunk actually that was just opened up there for me. I was already standing in there. I was looking at my green space. And I turned around, came down and came out, and I was just like in this beautiful lush green forest with a nice stream of river water and these flat rocks. And I just kind of sat down. And for me, what happened was immediately was when you asked for the power animals to come, all of a sudden I heard bobcat. Second one, I saw visually lynx. The third one was when the white tiger came through the forest directly at me. Then I heard wombat. So I was I didn't know what a wombat is. I've heard of it, but didn't know what it was. I had to look it up. Then the other one was frog spirit. They actually said frog spirit. They didn't say frog, they just said frog spirit. Then the next one after that was a white horse, which I saw visually. And yes, when I asked them about, what's going on, whatever, and they just basically told me, actually, I wrote it down. I think I closed it off, but they said to help me with forgiveness, to enlighten me. And they told me that they're here with me always, and I'm always connected with them. So I thought that was kind of cool. Anyways,
That is immensely cool, Janice. I love that, and I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's interesting that you got several different types of cats and that you got 2 white animals. I wonder if there's a meaning behind that. And if there is, your helping spirits would definitely be able to illuminate that for you. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because actually the lynx and the bobcat are kind of on the grayish to the whitish tone, right? Which I thought was interesting. But my ego was saying that with regards to the tiger, when he was coming for me, I thought, oh, maybe I used to have a cat named Tiger. Maybe he's coming for a visit. I don't know. But I mean, that's just my ego talking at that point.
Yeah. Well, it's a fascinating thing to think about, and it is certainly not out of the question that animals who have had bodies before and died and transcended would be able to come back to us as a kind of, it's almost like they're a helping ancestral spirit, they're a part of our family that's lived and passed. So they're certainly able to operate as helping spirits. Very quickly, I think that what you were sharing about your ethics is very much in alignment with where my ethics are. I do certainly believe in righteous kills, as in the case of the school shooter example. And at the same time, I also don't feel that it's my place to, in shamanism, we acknowledge a practice called sorcery. Classic shamanism does not promote the practice of sorcery, but we acknowledge the practice of sorcery. And sorcery, by my definition, is using spiritual means to influence people without their permission. And we really get into the weeds here a bit, because then people say, well, from a classic shamanic point of view, is doing healing work on people without their permission sorcery? And yes, it is from a classic shamanic point of view. And I steer people away from that for many reasons, but it's a very big topic. And of course, that sorcery also encompasses things like cursing another person who, as you're saying, might not have had the experience of love or an experience of truth. And I post quite a bit actually about politics on my social media pages because I don't feel that I have the luxury of being quiet. I post a lot about politics on my pages because I feel that it's important. It advances my spiritual goals in this lifetime. And one of the things that I talk about is I wonder what would happen if people who were making very challenging policies and choices in the world, what if they had an experience of our essential oneness? What if they had an experience of spiritual truths beyond what their mind could offer them? I saw somebody in the comments say people are doing the best they can, and I really very much agree with that. So I think what you're touching on are deep truths. And when you went into the lower world and experienced as very tactile, earthy, that is a classic shamanic experience of the lower world. Very often people go into the lower world and they experience deserts and mountains and beaches and things that we would experience here, landscapes that we would experience here in the ordinary world. It's a very natural, earth-based kind of world. So you are stepping into worlds that people have been stepping into for tens of thousands of years, Janice. And even if people had a different experience of the lower world is not meant to be a one-size-fits-all place. You go there and have the experience you have, and it's perfect, tailored for you by the spirit. So if you had a different experience in something very earthy, it's still the lower world. It is the door in the lower world that needed to be open for you to meet your needs. So Janice, a beautiful share. I thank you for starting us on those topics.
Thank you. I just want to just touch base on the word you say, acknowledge sorcery. So you're saying it's bad? Well, what I'm saying is what I would leave it up to the other realms to take care of instead of me. You call that sorcery?
Well, I would call sorcery if you, for example, or I, because in shamanism, we have a practice called, for example, soul retrieval, where we help a person become more present and more healthy and vital. If I was to, for example, say, here's a political figure that I really don't agree with at all, I feel like they're doing a lot of harm. If I could just give them a soul retrieval, I wonder how they would change. Now, obviously, this person hasn't asked me, walked from the White House down to my apartment and asked me for a soul retrieval, so I would be doing that without their permission. And that would be sorcery from a classic shamanic point of view, because I'm doing something for somebody without their want, without their permission. But when I think about wishing them well or sending them blessings, I don't necessarily equate that to sorcery. I more equate trying to change people on a spiritual level without their knowledge as sorcery. And certainly it has a very different flavor from sorcery that somebody would practice to harm another person consciously. Well-intentioned sorcery can still cause harm, but wishing somebody blessings or wishing them well, I would not necessarily classify that as sorcery. Does that make sense?
Okay, so what I do is not actually sorcery then, because I was asking to send them love and compassion. That's
I think sending somebody love, sending somebody compassion, that's not something that I would really be very quick to say is sorcery. If you want to journey to your helping spirits and ask how if they have an opinion on that, that's fine. But I know lots of us hold, a lot of my colleagues and I who are very aware of our boundaries with sorcery. We hold people in love, we send them blessings. So I would not necessarily say that sending somebody love is sorcery, no.
okay. Thank you. And I don't believe in the righteous K either, though. Even though
I thought you said that.
I understand what he said, I don't believe in that. I don't like that.
Oh, okay.
I prefer that if they were to maybe capture him alive and deal with him a different way, I don't necessarily want that person's life to be taken out either.
Yeah, no, I
I
hear you.
understand the concept
By the way,
of it.
By the
but
way,
I don't-
Janice, I would agree with you. I'm just saying that if I have a gun and I see someone shooting school children, I'm going to shoot at him. If I'm a good enough shot, then maybe I can injure him without killing him. But if I'm not, I won't cry rivers if I had to kill him in order to prevent school children from dying.
All right. Okay. I got that concept then. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always but those people are good shots, right? So that's my
I
point.
mean, some are, and that's why I said minimize harm. And to minimize harm, that means minimizing harm at the person you're disabling. If you can disable them,
right,
you minimize harm to that person too. That's truly minimizing harm if you're skilled enough. But if you're not, then you get rid of them to prevent the innocent children from dying.
As long as your intentions are to do it that way, but it ends up a different way, that's different, right? It's a different concept altogether, but to do it purposefully is not something I would agree to. Right?
There's so much nuance, and that's the beautiful challenge about our world. There's so much nuance in this middle world. It's really tricky, but I'm sure that's a discussion we could continue for a very, very long time, a very rich one. But I want to make sure that I get the chance to talk with all these other people who have questions. So I'm just going to put that down for myself for the moment. I think Matthew, did you have the next question
Yes, sir.
or share?
It's always great to see and hear from you, Garrett. We miss you here in New York.
It's always great to see you and sit in circle. It's such a pleasure to be with you, Matthew. Thank you for being here tonight. And I miss you guys too.
Oh, a very last minute getting in there. Thank you so much for helping me get in.
Of course. My pleasure. My pleasure. Welcome. What can we do for you?
Well, when I was looking for my power animal, I saw a bunch of animals. I mean, I saw a rhinoceros, I saw a ferret, but nothing really stuck with me. My question is, because you had mentioned mythical beings, is I guess like a treant, a living, breathing, moving tree, would that be considered mythical?
It's a great question. I personally would consider a tree to be more of a guardian spirit or a helping spirit, that just a helping spirit in general, rather than a power animal. Would I consider it mythical? I think it would depend on whether or not that tree had a mythical presence. So for example, if the ancient Grecians or the ancient Japanese had a mythical tree being that was showing up for you in your journeys, then yes, I would consider that a mythical being. But if you aren't aware of any mythical connection to it, or it doesn't bring any mythical connection up to you, or if it appears as more or less a tree, my knee-jerk response would be to call it a guardian spirit or a helping spirit. Yeah, does that help?
Yeah, it definitely does. It was just a very gnarled, kind of looked like Treebeard from Lord of the Rings. But it was looking at me, and that's about it. Just, who are you? What are you doing here? But nothing menacing. I didn't really get the feel that there was a power animal there around me at that time.
Yeah.
At this time,
and
at least.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. I think your experience is perfect. My experience is the spirits can take what human teachers are trying to lead for students and say, that's cool, but here's something better for an individual student. And so they might have looked at you, Matthew, and said, you know what, tonight's not the night for a power animal. Tonight's the night to introduce him to this great tree helping spirit. So they know what experience you need, and they gave that to you. So I think your experience was perfect.
That sounds beautiful to me. Thank you as always, Garrett.
My pleasure. Great to be in circle with you, Matthew. I think GW, I saw your hand next. Do you want to share something with us?
Sure. This might sound strange. Number one, kudos. It was absolutely amazing. And I'm not like easily under that kind of thing. And I thought I was gonna have real trouble with it. So when I got down to the lower world, or realm, I was the species, not the exact one, but the same species of what my spirit animal turned out to be. Is that strange? And I noticed like other ones, around, and I noticed, a lot of other types of animals, and ironically, like to Janice, I had a tiger not scare me. He didn't come up to me, but he growled at me. So it was just kind of like, wow, everything's different for everybody. But is it strange to take on the persona almost of the same species?
No, not. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering, is that weird or what?
No, not at all. No, there are I would be really hard pressed to find an experience that somebody had in a journey that I would call weird, because it's always really up to the helping spirits that they're working with. If they're journeying to the upper and the lower worlds, completely in worlds of unity, those experiences are really tailor-made by our helping spirits if we're working with them in those realities. The middle world's a little bit trickier, but again, I find what you're describing actually to be a classic shamanic experience. a shaman or shamanic practitioner. There are differences. Tonight we're just practicing shamanism to transform into an animal. So what you were describing, actually, not only is it not weird, but it has classic shamanic roots. Now, in terms of the growling, I find that very interesting because people do have different experiences with their animals in these journeys. And one of the experiences that they can have is the animal growling at them. And the way that I talk about it is what the animal might be doing is showing you how much power it has. It might be showing you this is the kind of power that you tap into when you form a really juicy relationship with me.
Oh, no, the interesting, what I'm saying, that was not my power animal. That was just, that was one of the other animals around, but I thought it interesting that for Janice, that was her power animal. And for me, I knew it growled at me, it roared. And it wasn't scary, but it just did its natural thing. And, it just stayed to the side. But no, that wasn't my part. But like I said, I arrived in the lower world as my part, doing all the things that my animal does, or my species does. And I'm not going to share it because I want to keep it to myself. But it was, and it answered all my questions, and it just made so much sense that I was so joyful and so peaceful. I actually had a tear, and I had I had a tear just of joy just come down from on my cheek and on my face. And it was, I don't cry easily. So it was really, really so powerful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. One of the things you could do is even journey back and say, I know you're not my power animal, but I'm just wondering why you growled. Is there a message here for me? You might find that there is, or something you can learn. But even if you don't want to journey back on this, I think that you had such a good experience is fantastic. Shamanism is sometimes called the crying way, because the shaman or the practitioner becomes very moved by the work that they witness and that takes place for them and others. So again, that is certainly something that we see having a very strong parallel in shamanism. So thank you for sharing, GW.
I just have one other thing. So I had, while I did this, I'm kind of getting into crystals. I had a rose quartz bracelet on, a smoky quartz ring on, and an amethyst in my pocket. And my third eye is stuck open, which I never even knew it was my third eye, but it's stuck open. So when I wave my, put my hand close to there, I feel there's pressure, and I never even, this was before I knew anything about chakras. And then somebody told me that, my third eye is stuck open. So anyway, it was just, like I said, just kudos. You way surpassed anything I could have thought.
I honor that, and I give all credit to the spirits, and I'm very grateful for that, GW. Thank you. Garrett, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I do want to start winding down. I'm going to take the last two questions, or let you take the last two questions, but then we're going to close out because it's a little after 9. And
okay, I just have one more question. Why did I not hear the drumming at all? I never heard it from beginning to end.
It could be a technical issue. It's a very realistic that it could have been a technical issue, but it also might have been a spiritual issue. Now, if somebody else were to say, I didn't hear the drumming at all, then I would say that's probably a technical issue on my end. If there were people that heard the drumming and you didn't, then I would say that there's a meaning to that that might be worthwhile to explore in another journey.
Yeah, I heard the drumming, so.
All right, so GW, there might be something there for you to explore. Charlene, I saw your hand next. Tell us what's on your mind.
First, I want to say thank you so much. This is just a great session. But for me, when I took my journey, I went to the top of this very mild waterfall with little pools, and I was sitting there getting ready to go on my journey. And what happened was a woman opened a door, and I walked through the door, everything went black, and I didn't hear a thing. I didn't see or think or know anything until you called us out. Yeah. So I feel like, am I blocked in some way?
Well, my first inclination would not necessarily be that you're blocked. There's of course different definitions of blocked. The fact that you had, any experience at all, and it seems to follow a pretty linear path. The woman opens the door, you step in. there's blackness in there, it sounds like. You step in, then you're unaware, and then you come back out. That all seems to have a very linear path. So to me, my inclination would not be you have a, your mind was too in the way or anything like that. It sounds more, my knee jerk would be it's a condition of whatever door it was that you stepped through. I think that there is a possibility that this has a deeper meaning, which if you repeat the journey and you go down through a tunnel, that appears for you, you exit into the lower world, you meet a transcendent spirit, and you ask them what was the meaning of that, they might say, well, here's the deeper meaning of it. It also might be that here in this middle world, sometimes we just interact with spirits that are not necessarily fully qualified to help us. And so they wanted to show you something, but it wasn't necessarily a power animal that was showing something to you. So I don't actually know what the nature of that was. And that's the beautiful challenge of shamanism, is that I know so little about people's individual experiences. But what I can offer you in this moment is methodological advice, which is follow the drumming, go on back down fully into the lower world, talk to a fully transcendent spirit there, and see what their perspective was on it. And if they say, actually, yeah, that was a helping spirit, a fully transcendent spirit, then that might be somebody that woman that opened the door might be another really rich connection for you, Charlene.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question. Great question.
Shaunak.
And Suna.
It's Shaunak.
Shaunak.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Shaunak. You're the last one.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for pointing that out, Garrett. Yeah, it's Shaunak.
Right.
So I was going to say, when you see your spirit animal, how do you know what that spirit animal actually means? And another question is, when you actually see your spirit animal, how do you know what he signifies or what it signifies? And second point too is, is there a reason as to why different people see different spirit animals?
Yeah, well, I think that to answer all of those points in one full breath would actually be possible, because the answers are all, it depends. It depends on the individual. So for example, why a tiger came to GW might be very different to why a tiger animal came to Janice. They might be the same animal, but they can have very different meanings. Much in the same way that we have different relationships with people in our lives here in ordinary reality, those animal oversouls can have very different relationships with human beings and different things that they want to help us with. So if a monarch butterfly is with me for transformation and healing, they might also be with you to help you find grace and forgiveness, or to heal a particular physical issue. It's really all very much an individual thing. So to discover, why are you showing up for me, power animal? What is your meaning? What would you like to help me with? Those are questions that you would ask within the journey. In this case, there are other ways to get that information, but tonight we're just talking about journeying. So you could go in and ask, why are you with me? What do you want to help me with? And get the answers that you need there. And what was your last point?
And the second part was, I was wondering, why do different people, when they go on the journey, they see different animals? So it's unique for every person, right? The question is,
Yes.
why is it? It's not, as you pointed on the first part, it's not, the animals aren't archetypical, as in they signify a singular idea. They can be different for different people. Then again, different people also see different animals, and that's also, the fact that it happens is interesting, and I'm just wondering why it happens.
Yeah, well, I think it's all depending on what the person needs. So I do think it really depends on the individual journey or the individual practitioner, based on where that person is at in their life, what kind of healing help they need, what their own evolutionary lessons are about. Different animals might show up that would like to help that person with something. I have a power animal that actually has, sometimes power animals, they like having their identities revealed, and sometimes they say, let's just keep this between us. Will be our nice secret. So I have a power animal that teaches all my classes through me and supports what I teach and tells me what to teach and so on. And the form that he takes actually has absolutely nothing to do with teaching in the strictest sense. But he's an animal that's been with me for many lifetimes. And this is just what he's volunteered to help me with in this lifetime. So maybe they just have a personal connection with you and want to find a way to help. So really, why they're here with us is so individual. What they can help us with is so individual. And that's why I tell people, don't waste your time Googling what the animal means for you or looking in books what they mean, because you're going to get information. Yeah, but it was information for the person that wrote the article. It was information for the person that wrote the book. It might have absolutely nothing to do with what the animal means for you. So shamanism is so, so individual. And what you're asking really taps into that deep individualism and spiritual freedom of shamanism. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you very much, Garrett.
Perfect. My pleasure. My pleasure. Garrett, I know we need to end. I'll hand things over to you.
Yes, I do want to close out. I get up really early in the morning, so 9 o'clock is really when I need to cut off. We went a little long tonight, but I do want to thank you so much, Garrett Jackson, for hosting tonight. Really appreciate the journey, and I was skeptical that I would find a power animal, and I did, so I'm impressed with that, and I definitely was shocked by which one it was. I will say I did start doing some Googling before you suggested not to, and I found that the name of well, anyway, I won't go into detail, but the name of the animal was relevant, so in its native form. So but anyway, hope that everybody has a great night. Thank you all for coming and for your great questions and comments. Hope that you all will come next week. We're going to talk about a hypothesis for how Trump got elected as president, which was a surprise to most people. And so, I'll talk about my hypothesis on how that happened, and welcome feedback and suggestions to the contrary. Maybe someone has a different opinion that's more correct, but I'll give my hypothesis. And like we always do in the Freethinker Institute, we'll have a marketplace of ideas where everybody shares their opinions politely, and we'll all come out learning something, hopefully. And that's really the goal, is to help each other on this path of this path and journey to learning, which is one that I think we're all on. I would argue that's the purpose of us being on this earth, is to learn. And so let's embrace it and learn all the wisdom and knowledge that we can, and help others do the same. So thank you all for being a part of tonight's learning. Thank you, Garrett Jackson, for leading us in that learning. And I hope you all have a great night, and hope to see you again at a future event.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Many blessings.